Is the person in here?
No. Yes. The person's in here. Chris, can you shut
Are we rolling already?
Who knows?
You know what I noticed on the inside of this mask?
Yeah.
It's a leopard print.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm going to keep my eyeballs totally shut, sealed, but check this out. Look at that. How's that look?
Well, the fact that it's upside down now, you look like Zorro for some reason.
Well, I mean, that's kind of, we're serious, but we're sassy. Okay, I didn't see anything.
To our guests, I apologize. Actually, to all the viewers, I do as well for this.
I'm really embarrassing myself. I'm sure this is somebody that's really important, and I'm going to say, oh, gosh.
Well, so we had agreed several weeks ago to do 3 episodes, so 3 weeks of podcasts, starting off with you blindfolded. All right? Maybe one of our best ideas or worst ideas. We'll find out.
Yeah.
But we start every episode with a surprise guest, one that you're unaware of the whoabouts, right?
It's correct, but on this one, I'm going to make a guarantee that I know who this is.
Okay, do you want to make the guarantee?
Joe Namath style guarantee. After it's revealed, I'm going to pull a slip of paper out of my pocket that will have the name of the guest.
Okay. All right. So be it.
That's the confidence level I've got.
All right. Well, here comes the introduction, okay?
Okay.
This person is a real unique find. This person was born in 1989. This person shares a birth year with the Energizer Bunny of all people.
That's not helping.
Yeah, Field of Dreams was playing in the local theater while this person was destined.
This is all about the year they were born.
To find their dreams in both the fields and the hills. One would probably assume as a child they took playing in the dirt very serious.
Okay. There's no way that this is what I'm thinking of. Does this person, are they from Indiana?
They could potentially call Indiana home.
No. Keaton?
I don't know. You'd have to take out your blindfold or give me your slip of paper.
We'll skip that part. Can I look?
Yeah, take off your
blindfold. Are you
blindfold.
being serious? Oh my God. Are you kidding
What's
me?
up, brother?
Thank you, man.
How are you?
I thought there's no way that can be the right answer.
I thought I was coming to West Virginia to mine coal, but here we are.
Boy, have I confused some people today.
See you, man. Thanks for making it drive. This is really unexpected.
So,
I couldn't believe you got that.
Well,
What a terrible intro for you to guess that. That was talent.
Really tough.
That was talent.
God,
yeah, you're welcome.
good job on
Hey.
you. You really got me on this, and he surprised me. There was no leak of this information. God, now I see. I knew I was going to be.
These guys said you're like Rain Man. I'm like, well, maybe he'll get it. I don't know. I would never have guessed it from that.
Hold on a second here.
No way. Keaton Turner.
How does he know? You guys have calendars that you've shared or something.
Stop. How did you know? Just. Okay. Joe.
How many different
He's
names did
got
he write down?
every potential guess that you could have.
I did definitely not think that could be one of them, but I did. Okay, so here's the truth. I've got my wife's out of town, and my 9-year-old and I are at the house alone, and so Sarah, my wife, is like, "You're probably going to want to get a babysitter for tonight, so let her stay with her grandma, because I have a feeling you're really going to want to spend some time and maybe go out to dinner tonight." So I was like, but she kept on it, like really want to.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, and she knows. I mean, Keaton's my bro.
Yeah,
like,
so
love this guy.
We should
So
probably do an official introduction.
that was the only tiny thing that gave me like the tiniest nugget to
I
even
got you.
take a chance on a
Oh,
piece.
that's funny.
Yeah, well, so Keaton Turner from Turner Mining Company, Bloomington, Indiana. Is all of that correct?
That's all correct.
Okay,
Yep.
so I do have an official introduction. Friend to Village Caregiving, friend to Jeff Stevens specifically. I've got to sit and listen to conversations between you guys plenty of times, and it was an exciting honor of mine that we could align schedules where Keaton, you could come down, because how we originally came in contact with who Keaton Turner was in Bloomington was through a podcast. And I think it's fair to say in most ways that the secret VCG experience is a podcast today because of Keaton. Would you agree with that, Jeff?
No, kidding me?
No, no way.
100%. No, yeah, we were standing in the office there with you and Thomas, and basically you're giving me a pep talk to have the guts to go through with doing it.
Is that, and you did that from that conversation? Really?
Well, this is really special. All right, I'll let you get going. But,
Yeah, well, no,
thank you.
Excited to be
seriously.
here. It's
I've
fun.
basically done my part. I was actually going to take off.
That's fine.
So, no, so the quick backstory is that a couple years ago, Village Caregiving was a smaller company at the time. We were going through some changes. We were growing. This was, again, a couple years ago. And I was listening to a podcast. It was on the Ramsey Network, Dave Ramsey out of the Nashville market. And it was more of an entrepreneur type of format, this interview was. And I just kind of stumbled upon it. And you had went down and done this interview. And it, in so many ways, described it. You could have interviewed Jeff at this season of the company, and he was mirroring so many things. So much so that I come home and I listen to it, and I was like, I don't really recommend a lot of things to these guys. I was just really kind of getting more involved at the central office. But I sent it to a couple people, Jeff being one of them. It's like, just listen to this. I can't make it make sense, but it describes where we are, and he's on the other side of this. And Jeff never said anything about it. Weeks go by. I never hear anything. I was like, well, it clearly inspired me and no one else. You hear that one song and you're like, best song ever. And everyone's like, that song sucks. But that wasn't the case. A couple weeks later, Jeff disclosed to me, he's like, I've probably listened to that podcast 10 or 15 times. And he has a great memory, as we know. And so he started quoting stuff from it. And I'm like, well, this guy legitimately knows this podcast. And we were going to be in Indiana for a corporate meeting, and I took a shot. Jeff referenced and quoted that podcast several times in meetings. I took a shot, messaged you on LinkedIn, and I was like, this guy is going to block me immediately. I would. I was like, hey.
Most of them I do. You slipped through. I don't know how.
Security wasn't tight. And so I shoot you this message on LinkedIn. You were so kind and gracious, messaged back. We ended up setting up a Zoom. And it was through that this friendship developed, and we had an opportunity to have you at one of our corporate meetings. We then was fortunate to come out and visit you at your corporate headquarters. So, and that's kind of where the relationship came from. But if you don't care, for the folks at Village Caregiving, what is a little bit of your background? What do you do for a living? Where are you from? Tell us a little bit about Keaton.
Yeah, so it's funny. I've never even listened to that Dave Ramsey podcast since then. It was a very at least for me, a dark time. And I don't know if you resonated with any of that, but it was, and after the best part about that podcast is after we hung around for like 30 minutes and talked off the record. And that's where the really good stuff happened, because I heard the story about Dave's ERP implementation and how much money it cost them and how they almost pulled the plug. So I've never listened to it. I should probably go back and listen to it, because it was a dark time for us and some really challenging moments. But I'm a glorified dirt mover. So I started Turner Mining Group almost 7 years ago. I got into mining. Really, my uncle had a company that was really a Mass X dirt moving company. We worked for landfills and football fields and so on and so forth. But we had some mining clients, and every mine site that I went to, it was amazing how old the workforce was. 50 and 60-year-old folks, and never saw one guy that looked like me. Rarely ever. So long story short, saw some opportunity in the mining space. I thought, man, if we can, no one back then was using Instagram or even LinkedIn and showcasing mining, let alone all the other dirt moving stuff that you see nowadays. So my uncle and I'm not telling anything that isn't already water under the bridge. We had kind of a falling out one day, little bit of a heated conversation. I was posting our family company's images on Instagram, and I was like, these are cool images. It gets people excited. Like, there's nothing like this on Instagram. And he was afraid we were giving away trade secrets and so on and so forth. I'm like, that's an excavator digging dirt. There's not much secret in that. But, fast forward a year or two, I was like, man, I think we can blow this thing up into, A, media company, B, a people company, but then lastly, a real mine services company, because we have to make money to pay the bills to do all the fun stuff like podcasts. And so, it was off to the races, started a company. hammered LinkedIn, hammered Instagram, took pictures. Our first few jobs, we basically bought the jobs, lost money just so we could post pictures and get people excited. And then it just snowballed. We've got an awesome brand and an awesome following. And my core belief is it's all around good people, and it's all around just being honest and transparent. We screw up every day. Like I was hearing about some of your guys' issues, pre getting in this room, and we have the same issues every single day. You can do a lot of really good things, but you still are trying to build something from scratch that's really hard to do. And there's going to be issues along the way. So I just like to be transparent. People resonate with it. Guys like you resonate with it. If I tried to polish everything and make us look amazing, you guys probably wouldn't have resonated with it, and we wouldn't be sitting here. So that's a little bit in a nutshell what we've been doing.
Awesome. It doesn't make a lot of sense that a excavating company and a home care company would have a lot of similarities, right? I mean, completely different markets. Our days should be very different. But in conversations with you, I realize that this is a people thing, right? No matter what we're doing, if that's excavating or food service or whatever, the ones that are exceptional in the space are the ones that are winning this people situation, right? And whether that's through social media or through your marketing campaigns and your imaging. And you guys, I was telling the impact team here to check out your stuff. But what you guys are doing in excavating, I have a background in aggregate moving and stuff. And it was just so uncommon when I stumbled upon your stuff. It's just no one was doing that, right? No one could make an excavator look cool, right? But you did and marketed it to the right people. How did you have a vision for that when you saw a generation before you doing it one way, and you come in and you're like, well, that's what we're doing to pay the bills, but this thing over here, how did you have the vision for that?
Well, I think, again, going back when I was stepping foot on all these mine sites when I was 18, 19, 20 years old for the first time and seeing a lot of older folks, it got me thinking, and it's really odd how it's worked out. It really is. It's a God thing, because it got me thinking, what is going to happen when all these people retire? None of my buddies were going into mining. Like, you don't see mining on billboards. It's not on TV, or at least back then it wasn't. Even Gold Rush didn't exist back then. And by the way, that's not real mining. So if you watch the show and are a fan, they're good guys, but that's not real mining. So you didn't, there's no exposure. Thomas, who is my partner, you guys have met Thomas. He makes this really valid point. You can grow up on a farm, and you can pass farms on the road, and you can kind of go on a farm experience for, like a school field trip. You don't grow up on a mine. You don't pass mines on the road and at least get to know what's going on there. Like, you don't go to mines on school field trips. And so, I thought there's gotta be an awakening for this industry, because we're still on the cusp of a lot of people doing a mass exodus, either retiring or going into other lines of work. Maybe it's more white collar jobs or whatever, but you're not seeing a huge influx of people in mining. And so my theory was, money follows opportunity, and opportunity follows attention. And if I can get everyone's attention and get really good people that want to do mining, we used to say make mining sexy again. If I can get people like you and I and you and want to go mine, and I can convince you to come work for us and build a business with us and make it fun and do podcasts and all these things and put it on social media, then I think we have a real chance at changing the industry. And, not to get too corporate-y, but, our mission is to make life better for the mining industry. When you talk to miners from West Virginia that have spent their life underground in coal,
yeah,
most of them aren't going to be super excited to tell you how awesome their life is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. It's funny how different mining and home care are. I think that we probably related on just a more of a business leadership sort of role, but they are a lot of similarities as I hear you talk about it, because, so there's a reawakening of trying to hire in the mining industry, and all these guys are older guys, and how are you going to get the next wave? Home care, interestingly, is such a new little industry, Like, and, a decade ago, it was seriously just like glorified babysitting in most states. There are still a lot of states that it's not even a licensed thing. Can you believe that?
I cannot believe that.
Right. So it's that young. So we have the same, it's not a reawakening. We just have the first awakening to let people know this exists, what the jobs are like, what the companies are like. You've probably heard this before. So the younger, millennials type age, which we need to hire a lot of, they necessarily don't care as much about getting a max paycheck as much as they do flexibility in their work, purpose in their work. Mm-hmm. So Aaron and I are like, well, we can offer flexibility and purpose in a huge way. We've got to get that out there. And I think the culture here is really cool. It's one of the things that I'm most proud of. It's a special thing. But if we don't do stuff like this podcast, we don't get to show it off.
Yeah.
And it has worked. I don't know if Aaron has shared stories with you, but we have actually been conducting interviews for director roles in the last few months where they have found the podcast. I mean, they're going online to kind of look and see what we're all about.
Yeah.
And before in the interviews, it was sort of, we're convincing them that they want the job as much as they're convincing us to hire them. It's kind of changed now to where they've seen the culture. They've heard the stories from the people that will become their peers about how it is a special place and they love the work. It's pivoted now to where they're like, please hire me, which is cool. And I give you a lot of credit for that because hiring will be the thing that we have to win in the next decade. And you just gave a lot of vision on that. And so that's why we're talking about kind of getting to start the podcast thing.
Well, it's weird. Employees have all the leverage. Like when unemployment's almost zero, and it really is almost zero, and industries like us, employees have all the leverage. So if we're not doing cool things to attract the employees, you don't have a fighting chance. If you're a company that's doing mining today, we are going to beat you every single time because when an employee goes to look for a mining contractor, who do I want to go work for? If they listen to our podcast one time, I've got them.
Yeah.
Because, we're real. We're raw. Like, there's not a huge board of corporate white-haired guy. Like, we are a real company. We want you to come in and grow with us. You guys are a real company. I guarantee you, if an employee listens to you and sees you guys and watches you talk one time, and he's evaluating you against some other competitor, it's a no-brainer. But if you're not doing this stuff, you don't have a fighting chance. So
yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
Well, what if we just turn them off?
Now, the interesting thing is, pay's got to be there, flexibility. Back when we started, Google had this like notorious thing where they've got like ping pong tables in the office and bean bags. We don't take it to that extent. Yeah. We do have a keg, right? Like we do have fun.
Sure.
Yeah.
We've got unlimited vacation policy. Now, people don't use it, at least to the level of abuse, but there are some really cool perks to being a part of something new and different. So you got to have a little bit of both, but you got to first get their attention.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that you were going through a tough time when you recorded that podcast on Ramsey's network. What was the name of that for anybody that might want to look it up?
Entre
Leadership. And that host's name, it wasn't Dave that was the host. There was a different individual doing it at that moment.
Man.
But
don't put me on the spot.
Yeah. We can link it.
Well, he did a fantastic job. We
interview.
can link it. But I can see now, though, if it was a tough time, why you wouldn't want to go back and listen to it. That makes sense. But, man, it's really good stuff. And like Aaron said, I listened to it several times. First off, he said the conversations that Keaton has on this podcast sound like every single thing I've heard in this office for the last 6 months. And so that got my attention a little bit. But then just the way that you approach things too, and you're being modest. You're a glorified dirt mover. He's the CEO of a large mining company.
I'm actually not good at moving dirt, so I shouldn't even say it. Shouldn't even say glorified.
You're a bad dirt mover.
Yeah.
Right. But probably some people might relate to this if they're the director of an office. When you're the boss of a place, like I think you said on there, they see this podcast and you get to be the boss and vacations and stuff, and it looks very glorious and a bit fun. You get all the rewards. the stressful days are harder on you than it can even be imagined, to the point where you almost wonder sometimes, do I need to quit doing this for my own health?
Yep.
I mean, is that sort of a place that you
I questioned that this morning, and I'm being dead serious. I messaged my business partner. I said, hey, let's get together Friday, because I have these days, right, where, and my wife knows this, she'll ask when she can tell I come home and immediately pour a glass of wine. She's like, was this a sell day? Meaning, like, are you ready to sell the company today? Or was there something else going on? But there are problems every single day, and they will eat you alive. I was texting Aaron, and we're going to get together and hang out after this. I'd planned to stay all night. I've got to go first thing in the morning and fix a problem, and you do it once, no big deal. You do it a few times, no big deal. Especially when you're young and early, you stack year after year of doing it every day. There are dark times and it's usually the things that should work. It's you trust people. 99% of the people are good, but that one guy that screws you over and either takes business from you or screws a customer of yours that you can't fix the relationship with, like, it just really takes the wind out of your sails, because you and I are a little different. When you're a founder, you're not someone just hired in to come run the business. You take everything personally, and you take every failure as if it were you in that spot, because at the end of the day, they all roll up to you.
Yeah. Don't you feel like as founders that you view your business as a child? I can make so many parallels of how Village Caregiving to me is like Cameron or Rachel, my children. That's how even when I don't mean to treat it a certain way, I can realize I'm treating this like a kid.
Yep.
I care about it so much. And
I was in some executive coaching, and my coach, she was genius, she diagnosed me and she said, you have a real problem. You have founder syndrome. And here's what founder syndrome is. And if you don't know what it is, go look it up. There are times, and there was time during COVID, I think I would be better off to resign as CEO and go hire someone to do this job, and they could probably do it better. But I've got this challenge where I can't give up the control yet, right? Like, I think it'd be better. I think our company would be better. I think somebody out there could do it better. I think financially my company would grow and I would prosper more. I can't physically let my child move on to somebody else's caretaking. It's a weird place to be, but I really believe it's a founder thing, and it's a founder syndrome issue. It's a challenge.
Yeah, and we talk about it sometimes, the founder's trap, which you can fall into. It's when things get hairy, you want to take back all the control, and that's a problem too.
It's a huge problem. Oh man, I might get in trouble. I'm going to a project. It's a problem currently. It's a challenge. We've been doing this project for 3 years. We got 2 years left. Unfortunately, it's a huge problem. We lost $1 million there the first year. We lost $1 million the second year. We're on track to lose $1 million the third year. You got to think, why in the world are you guys still doing it? The first thing I want to do when I see the data every morning is go straight to the project and fix the problem myself. Like, start directing everyone and start throwing things. You've seen the meme where the guy is on his desk and he's throwing papers, but that doesn't help us grow, right? We don't build process that way. We don't make data-driven decisions. That's me making emotional decisions. A theme of our company this year is data-driven decision making, because as a founder, I am so used to just making emotional decisions. I see something, I've been here before, I know what to do, so I'm just going to go do it, cut out the process, cut out all the people that, need to grow in the process, and we'll just shortcut the problem.
Yeah.
It doesn't help anybody.
It's not a long-term path. I know.
And it's not sustainable for you or me to do it that way every day.
That's right. But are you a problem solver? So we have a personality test that we sometimes will use, and I scored extremely low on the stress tolerance portion, and I'm confused by this. It's like a 13 out of 100, and I say to my wife, who's a psychologist and has written tests like this, I don't understand. I deal with stress all day, every day, and we have a lot of success. Like, what do you mean I can't handle it? She's like, that's not what that means. You don't tolerate stress. at all. You immediately begin to just start trying to fix the problem.
Yeah.
So, and she made this analogy, we're walking around Chicago and her heels are cutting into her shoes all day and she just is bleeding all over the place. She's like, I would tolerate that. And I just kept walking. You would have immediately gone into a pharmacy, started bandaging yourself up, like you fix stuff all the time. That makes it even harder to not want to just fix things.
Yeah.
It's not me by nature.
I'm deaf, and I've learned this through my wife. It's crazy when you hear your wife's problem, you have an immediate solution, but that is the wrong thing to do. And I've learned this, right? Like, and it's weird because it's almost the same thing for founders. You have a problem, you know how to go immediately, quickly fix it, but you never reach the point of maturity in your organization doing it that way. And it's been a long 6.5 years. There's a book. I don't know if you guys read the book.
Corporate Life Cycles.
Corporate Life Cycles.
Yeah.
You know, and it will literally walk you through the different phases. I'm sure you guys have lived through some of them. If I'm making every decision and most of them are emotional reactions to problems, we will be a mom and pop shop forever.
Yeah.
If I'm empowering leaders and people and I'm building a team around me who are using data to make decisions and building up their own teams, the further I get away from the operation, I think the better, more mature we become. But it's painful building that. And it takes a long time and it takes a lot of reps. And as soon as one director burns you, it like starts the whole process over. You start losing faith and you're like, well, if that guy burned me, how many other these people aren't doing their job? And how do I need to go helicopter down in on them? It's a cycle.
You know, the last thing, I'm sure you've put a lot of work into preparing this. I just can't help myself. I'm out of control. When we talk about that role being a dark place, people might wonder, like, what do you mean dark exactly? Like depressed? And I mean, I don't mean that exactly, but I do have the word that describes it for me. I don't know if I've ever told you this, but it's because when there's a real serious challenge, and it's not that hard to imagine like some worst case scenarios that aren't like 0.001%, they're like 4%, like this could, so you can let your mind go. And that's part of your role too, is to worry about things. Then you have to head off, right? But when you find yourself on those days, and we say you can go to a dark place, what it is for me in that role is it's a lonely place. That's how I feel, is lonely. It's not depressed or sad or like, it's a lonely place to be.
Yeah.
Do you relate to that?
100%. I've got a little bit of a, shot in the arm with a business partner who lives and breathes this stuff. He's psychotic in the way he's able to deal with multiple businesses, and he's not day to day for us. He is a guy that he'll jump in when needed. He's kind of a CFO, like quasi, right hand man to me, financial guru. My age, I grew up with him. I've known him for 30 years, 35 years almost. But he's the guy, when I am thinking about selling the business, of which he owns a part of, we will go get a beer and he will tell me how amazing we're going to do $1 billion next year. This is, and he paints with such a positive image. Some days it works. Other days I'm like, well, you're still psycho. So, I appreciate the pep talk.
Yeah.
But it is super lonely, right? Even with him, and he's amazing, he's not running day to day. He's not as close to the problems. He doesn't recognize the massive pitfalls that could happen. Any day in mining, and this is weird to say, since there's hopefully not many miners listening to this, I can say this. Someday there's going to be a guy or a gal that dies on one of our sites. So if we do this long enough, the numbers are what they are. Last year, there were 50 plus people killed in the industry. We just had one of our companies, not our companies, but a contractor that we compete against, who I'm very, very familiar with them. We've worked on the same site. They just had a guy, he's been doing it for 25 years. He just died. Mining is still dangerous, as much as we want to make it pretty and sexy, but knowing every single morning when you wake up, you could get a text from somebody in the organization that we had an accident. Like, that is a weird, heavy feeling. We one of our trucks, pickup trucks, hit a Coca-Cola van this morning. Like, no one was hurt. Everything's fine. The truck can be fixed, but that, to wake up to that stuff and it directly impact you as the founder and like, well, that's a step back from the direction we wanted to go. Dude, it's lonely. Who do you call and like tell that, you're dealing with the anxiety that somebody could die every day in your business doing what you do? It's odd. It's kind of eerie.
Yeah, I can imagine. Jeez. That's heavy, man.
But it's no different. I mean, any service business, you could have a person who you have a lot of trust in, a lot of faith in, screw over a customer relationship in like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And
yeah, well, I mean, we have a lot of vulnerable clients that pass away all the time, and we have thousands and thousands of clients, and by definition and the nature of it, they're not doing well. So
yeah.
It's different than a tragic accident, I suppose, because this is sort of the natural evolution of the, care at the end of life. But it's still tough, and it gets really tough for our caregivers that get really attached to the families.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough for the directors in the offices that get attached. And I can have lots of memories of especially early days when we didn't have that many clients. I knew every single one of them by name. I would go fill the shifts sometimes. I would go over there in the middle of the night and help them out. Yeah, you do. It does make it different when there's something that purpose-driven and important on the line. Anyway, thanks for sharing that.
Well, the bigger you get, the more of it there is. Like it like builds.
Yeah.
You think you're going to get bigger and there's going to be more money and things get easier. I look back at the early days and I'm like, man, it was so easy. It was so good, and you get bigger, you get more employees, you get more customers. There's everywhere you look, there's an area where you can improve. Like the feeling that you're talking about. And when I go back to the Dave Ramsey podcast, why it was a dark time, no darker time than anything we're going through now. There's always something that can be fixed, because there's always something broken.
Why did it feel darker then? You hadn't learned how to handle it as well?
I think the more scar, and you and I have talked about this, the more scar tissue that you have, like in this business building, flesh that this suit that we wear, the more scars you have, you eventually get to someday where you're like, I've talked about like lawsuits. I don't know how many active lawsuits we have. I don't really care. But the first one was really terrifying.
Went home and poured a glass of wine right away.
You don't sleep. The police, literally, the sheriff delivered the package to the door. My wife got it, and she was like, oh my gosh, I just got served a lawsuit.
Yeah.
They served it at our office for our employees to see. Like, the first one's terrifying.
Yeah.
You'll never forget that feeling. It's like a car crash. The first one you're in, you'll never... The second one, you're like, oh, that was also really bad. By the 10th one... or the 20th one, I don't even know what we're on. You don't even think about it. Sometimes someone just walks in and is like, oh yeah, by the way, this one's getting, we're going to settle this one. I didn't even know that was happening, So you just get enough scar tissue through reps. And I think when, if I could remember right, the Entre Leadership podcast, we were halfway through an ERP implementation. We had just spent, I don't know, at the time it was probably $250,000, $500,000. We pulled the plug. Totally switched to a different ERP.
Did you really?
Pulled the plug completely. Almost a year's worth of data, time, energy, money invested into it. Restarted from scratch. And by the way, the whole time after the podcast, they're telling me Dave Ramsey showed everyone on a chart, all 1,000 employees in the whole building, huge building, pulled everyone into the atrium and showed them on a chart. Here's how much money they're going through an ERP and CRM implementation. Here's how much money we lost this quarter. Here's how much we lost the quarter before that. And he had it forecasted out in a graph. And he said, at this stage, here's how many of you are out of a job. At this stage, here's how many more are out of a job. And he got all the way to the executive levels. And it was like 3 quarters. He's like, you got 3 quarters to figure it out, or we're going back to cash, because they were all cash. They had no credit. It was a wild story. And I remember listening to that, and I'm like, yeah, we've got to get it figured out.
Did they figure it out?
They figured it out.
Yeah, I thought.
We have finally figured it out. Like, we are, like 2 months ago, we finally started getting the reports and the data, and we're not 100% there. We're about 95. But dude, I've got more gray hair just from the ERP stuff, because it can ruin your business.
Yeah, Aaron, Tell him where we're at in our CRM. Like we're kind of right at the we're gonna find out if it works or not phase, and the truth is about to come out.
Dave was having people that would call, buy a product or service, spend their money. The next day, they were having salespeople call the person that just bought it and saying, "Hey, would you like to buy this?" And they're like, "We just bought it." Yeah. Horror stories. And we've missed revenue. Like we'll have someone come in and like, "Hey, here's a $100,000 invoice we didn't send the customer. Is it too late? 6 months later, is it too late to send this 100?" Like just stuff that
we're really close though, right?
Yeah.
It's actually rolled out.
He sounded nervous when he said, "Yeah."
No. I mean, because that's when we scale up and we go from 12 locations to 24 locations and then just keep spreading out. Things starts happening, right? You start hitting these rev limiters on your processes. And I think we've done a great job, but just over the last couple of weeks, we've ran into a couple of situations where we're like, what is happening right here? How did this? And so the CRM has solved a lot of that. We are in implementation stage right now. We're in the middle of wave 2. So that means wave 1 was kind of a beta testing area. We had 8 locations. Now we're in wave 2 where we've added about another 20. Wave 3, assuming wave 2 goes as well as wave 1 did, we're going to get the whole company in it. But this was a made from scratch process. We looked at a lot of outside vendors, didn't see anything that they loved. So we had this thing built. They've invested a lot of time, money, energy into this, and it has held up so far. And we believe they'll continue to hold up, but it is, what we're doing right now is we're hiring directors in new markets that are coming to work for a very different company than directors 6 months ago did, because their day-to-day is going to look very different. We're now going to be, instead of working in Excel sheets and doing a lot of these processes, you're going to be in a portal where you're going to live. Like your day will be ran through that portal. That's a very different experience than I came here nearly 5 years ago with. I was curious, as you're talking about that, would Keaton of 8 years ago recognize the Turner Mining Group of today?
No chance. Not even remotely close. I mean, I could give you a million examples, but I mean, 8 years ago, I didn't even know what a cost code was, let alone that we would have a library of 1,000 cost codes and that we would have people in the dirt cost coding activities and no clue how we got here. We just made an acquisition, so we acquired another 140 employees. Just mind-blowing stuff. And the odd thing is when you're going through it, you feel like every day is a battle, right? You got problems. And recently, within the last 6 months, I've really focused on, can we make a little bit of progress every day, especially when you're going through an ERP implementation. We know it's not going to be perfect for a long time. We've got to hack it. The reports aren't the way we want. Little bit of progress every day. And I'm confident if we do that and continue to do that, we'll look back and feel the same way I do about the 8 years ago thing. But when you're living through it every single day, it doesn't feel like progress. It feels like a lack of people are frustrated. They don't have, when you guys roll this out, some people will love it. Some people will hate it. They're like, dude, Excel works. I know how to use Excel. Google Sheets work. They're easy. That's not sustainable. It doesn't help growth. It feels some days like you're moving backwards, but a little bit of progress every day. It's amazing what a year or 2 or 3 will do.
Yeah, and we've been on this for 16 months, I think. I can't imagine if now we just decided, scrap it. Yeah. What a decision. I mean, man, because it's so much time and money. And here's the funny thing. It's become sort of the running joke in the office here in the last 6 months or so. Any problem, okay, it could be related to payroll, could be related to care sheet, anything. Well, whenever the CRM is up and running, it'll fix that.
It is.
Whenever the CRM gets here, it'll fix that.
That's the problem. And you could ask Dave. Everyone was using it as an excuse, as like a scapegoat. And our people do the same thing. They're like, oh, well, and I'm not gonna go too deep because I don't know who is actually gonna listen to this from our company. But me trying to hold people accountable to a P&L, like if you're running a little business unit for us, you've got a P&L. And your bonus is tied to your P&L. Your quite frankly, your job security is tied to whether you manage your P&L.
Yeah.
When our ERP cannot give them an accurate P&L, the first thing they do is throw their hands up, be like, hey, you can't manage my performance because the P&L's a joke.
Yeah.
The data's not right. So we're almost 24 months. I don't know when the Dave Ramsey thing came out. It'd be interesting to look back. It'd be disgusting to look back at how long this ERP has taken us, both iterations. But you are basically flying an airplane with no instrument panel and someone's taped up the windshield and you got to figure out how to land the plane. That's what it feels like to operate a business, a growing business, trying to implement an ERP. Because we've grown from when we started to now, we've actually grown the business. And you got to hope that you can hack it long enough to still know, A, you're making money, B, your cash flow is not, completely deteriorating.
Yeah.
C, how do you manage performance within individual teams? Like it's a real challenge, but you don't get to, like the Life Cycles book will teach you, you don't get to that like maturity business, real prime organization without going through some of this stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I use that analogy. You're laughing already because you know what I'm going to say. I use the analogy of somebody throwing a blanket over the windshield of an airplane. And well, then if you don't have the vision, you can't. And he made fun of me. This was on a regional Zoom. He said, why would there be a blanket on the windshield of an airplane?
Yeah, someone could tape up a windshield from inside, but I don't think you could actually get the blanket on the end. Anyways.
It could happen. Anything's possible.
Yeah, that's right, Aaron.
Anything's possible.
So you have said on a couple of podcasts, I'm a fan of your podcast. I love to listen to it because it is, I think we have some real honest conversations, but some of the conversations you guys have over on your podcast, it is truly raw and unedited. I mean, you know that you guys are at the end of the day, we're opening a couple beers up and we're going to have a conversation with someone that's in town from one of our divisions. And you had said, I find this very consistent about you, and I'm curious why it's so important to you. On Ramsey's podcast, you said, we pay our people well enough, and my wish is that all of them would retire millionaires. Mm-hmm. I thought, that's a bold statement to make, right? And then you fast forward nearly 2 years, and you said recently on a podcast, you had one of your guys on, and he is taking some leadership positions in the company, and he had just bought a farm. And you referenced that during the podcast. You said you just bought some property, right? Mm-hmm. You guys are going to have some animals. And you could tell the joy in his voice. I don't know this man, but you could tell the joy in his voice, not only that you had trusted him to take leadership in your organization, you could tell that he'd been promoted in some positions there, but also that he's finding financial success and he's building wealth. Why is that so important to you? Because we talk about that all the time. I think we pay really well and we incentivize really well. And I hear them say all the time, you've got to take care of yourself and have a great life and do these things. As an owner, have you been in it long enough to see some of that come where people's lives have changed because of your organization? And how serious is that? Because you're on a different podcast now. You can be honest if you want. Is that an important thing for you?
Yeah. I mean, the best days in business for me, we had a gal. She's one of our director level folks. She just bought her dream house, is the way she describes it. And she is ecstatic, single mom, literally a legend in my book. And to see her buy her dream house, like to me, that first makes me feel like it's amazing that we've been able to give her an opportunity to do that, because that's all her, right? I am paying her at or probably even below what she should be making on the open market. She is such a rock star that she could go anywhere and make more money. She really could. I really truly do believe this. Same thing with Austin, the guy who bought the farm, right? He came from a big company. He was a up and coming young leader. He'd have probably had a great career with them. He's making great money. And what we try to do, and this is a real challenge in business, is align incentives, the organization's incentives and priorities to that person. What are their motivators? Is it a financial motivator? Is it, free time? Some people just want a company truck, and that's more important than a financial bonus or something like that. I truly believe there's so much opportunity in our industry that if we get really good people that just absolutely execute their priorities, there is so much money to go around. I shouldn't have to worry about them becoming a millionaire. You just stay in it long enough, you're going to be a millionaire, right? And it's so hard for people that are not seeing those same opportunities that I see. They can only see so far, right? They might be a lower level or mid-level manager, and they see their job task right in front of them. They don't see what they can do in 5 years. Just like I 8 years ago couldn't imagine what we're doing now, the same thing for these folks is true. They can't imagine what they're going to be doing in 8 years. We've got people now that should be making $500,000 a year in 8 years. You ask them today, they can't comprehend that, right? They don't understand what they've got to do, what kind of person they have to become to go make that happen. But you have to change. You wouldn't have caught me dead in a jacket 8 years ago. I didn't own a jacket, hardly, I would never have been on a podcast doing this. So I had to become a little bit different person doing different things. Same thing is true for these folks. There's just so much opportunity. That's why I'm so confident in the financial benefit for them. If like the industry was stagnant and there wasn't a ton of opportunity, I wouldn't say that. If you're a rock star in the mining industry and you're young like we are, you will be a millionaire. Just go do your job, hit your metrics. You shouldn't have to worry one bit. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. It actually leads me to the next question, and that is, I have heard on your podcast your folks talk about the ones that I think it was they show up to be a laborer one day and they want to be a site manager the next.
Yep.
And your guys are like, they're skipping 13 steps in the process.
Yep.
And part of that has to be that development
Yep.
process, right? You can't do that until and I won't try to even impersonate the lingo of what you guys do, but it was clear that there is a maturing process that has to occur there. But it's an instant gratification time period, right?
Yeah.
And so some of our people get anxious, and it's like, I don't have any upward mobility today, and so I start getting anxious in my seat. If we have a director that is in Louisiana, we don't have an office there, so it's safe to say. If we have a director there and they've been in the role 6 months and they're getting anxious, but we're at a young company that always promotes from within, what advice do you give your people about that maturing process or that aging process in the position?
I would compare, if you're talking to this person, I would compare their journey and their career to Jeff. I would say, look back at when he started, what he did, all the steps he took to get what he's doing now, right? I try to refer everything back to me because we've got some people that are my age, a little bit younger, and then people older than me that work for us. And I've had a lot of really talented guys that are making $100,000 a year that say, I want the general manager job. I want to make $200,000 a year. Okay, well, let's break that down. What does the general manager have to do to get to where he's at? What are all the little prerequisites, right? What hard conversations does he have to have? What battle scars does he have? And I relate it to me. We didn't get here just one day miraculously. We wished it into like reality. It is failed ERP. It is failed projects. It is you lose $1 million here. You worry about cash flow there, right? You have to fire your best friend. 3 other best friends quit because you're a terrible CEO when you're 28 years old, right? There are so many. I couldn't even write a book about how many little things happen to one day. Mark Cuban did not become Mark Cuban one day. It was 30 years, 40 years, 50 years of failed attempts and false starts and like terrible relationship endings and family drama. Like, so for a young guy, and it just shows so many young people who are ambitious but ignorant, which I was one of them. You have to go through the process. You just have to. Like if you shortcut it, and we've seen some of our employees who are really good, 24-year-old kid at being a foreman. Another company recognizes their talent and they said, hey, you're going to be a superintendent for us. Come join tomorrow. And they do that, and that's fine. They are stunting their own growth because he goes over there and he's a superintendent. He doesn't know how to manage emotions at the next level. He doesn't know, his emotional intelligence isn't there. His financial reporting skills aren't there. He doesn't know what a balance sheet is or a P&L is. So, some people can live trial by fire and they continue to execute and win. Other people, you just need a little time. You need all the hard experiences, and I'm a firm believer you don't just skip steps.
We sure didn't. I mean, it's true to go all the way back. Yeah. I mean, because I went into business with Matt Walker, who you've met. And dude, it was slim pickings. I mean, I've told this story before, but the first year we had one client that we represented. We were at a law school, and so we were doing government relations and things. But that client paid us $15,000 a year, and that was to split with each other. That's barely able to eat. And while you're wondering, why did I choose to do this? And then you can fast forward. We had success with that. But Village Caregiving in 2013, that's like 6 years later, starts that. And now it's all the same stories. And in this one too, I don't know if you had this, maybe mining is not the same, but in our business, it was just a lot of straight up work. And I'm talking like some ridiculous hours, man. Like I would basically go to work all day, come home and have dinner in an evening with the family. They'd go to bed at like 10, and I would just go for my second shift from 10 till 4 a.m. in the basement, sleep for a few hours, back up at it. Now, that wasn't every single night. I think I would have just run myself in the ground, but it was 3 nights a week, maybe 4 nights a week, a lot of that. Yeah. So it was back-breaking stuff. That's true. Can I go back too also to the point of how the people that are the staff members and the directors, I agree. I think that they should retire millionaires, and the opportunity, there are a lot of parallels weirdly with mining because, this business is not going backwards. And we're talking about part of like the stress that we have. That is not to, I'm never worried that the industry is going to go away. It's only booming. The fear is that we aren't going to be good enough to lead it and take it where it needs to go. Mm-hmm. So you have to keep on leveling up and doing those things. But because the business is so strong, the industry is so strong, the directors have a huge opportunity here too, just like you were explaining with mining. This is only going to boom. The Department of Labor says it's the fastest growing one over the next decade. And this is real stuff. So there's a massive opportunity for them. It's another correlation with mining that's worth pointing out. Hey, whenever, 8 years ago, you couldn't see yourself wearing a jacket and being on a podcast, what were you like back then? How did you develop yourself? Take us back to that, Keaton.
I'm sure there are there's actually a really, really interesting picture of me in college, camo hat bent, top of my head, looked like a complete Delbert, and I'm cutting a steak with my pocket knife. Yeah. How I got my wife to marry me through all of that is wild. I think I was like a lot of our people. I was young, ambitious. I thought I was legit, honestly. 8 years ago, I'll take you back. I had won a contract for the family business, my uncle's business, $60 million contract. And I thought, man, my life is set. Right? It's not even my company. I own 0% zero of that company. Yeah. $60 million contract. We were a tiny company. I think we might have did $20 million a year. We won 60 and it was a 2-year contract. So it was insane. So I started getting a huge head, right? Ego went through the roof. I was on, the project was a massive success, stupid cash flow, really changed the lives of a lot of people, our people at the time. And, part of that is what catapulted me into the confidence of starting my own thing a couple years later. There's nothing like crashing back down and your ego taking a beating when the very first job after starting your own company, you're excited, you got your logo, you got your new company truck. The first job lost 30 grand. Okay. Yeah. And it took me a year to get the first job almost. It took me 7 or 8, 9 months to win the first job, and it lost 30 grand. The next one, we made a little bit of money. The next one made a little bit of money. And, you fast forward, we won a big it's $15 million. So, after starting our company, a $15 million contract, that's legit. We're on our way. Well, it was a 3-year contract. We lost almost $3 million on that, right? So it's why I say you have to go through those learnings and those steps, and you can't skip them. Because if I skipped all that and someone handed me $100 million and say, hey, go start this mining company, you know what would happen? We would end up like most of these tech startups that don't do anything. They fizzle out into nothing because the founders didn't learn the lessons. They didn't have hard conversations. They got way too fat and overspent and didn't worry about cash flow. I can't even really explain in words how critical it is to pick something and literally live in the trenches for as long as you can until you've made enough money to get some legit people around you and help lift you out of the trenches. And then you just create another trench. It's just a new level.
Yeah.
A $10 million company, the trench is one thing. $100 million company, there's still another trench. Hopefully you got some good people that can lift you out of it. So that's my theory on it. The people that can skip steps, write a book, teach me how, because I don't think you can do it. I haven't figured out how.
I agree. And it is good to have setbacks and challenges that remind you, keep your ego in check. Don't be too arrogant. That's easy to have happen.
So kind of the last question that I would have for you is we have often, I guess in conversations with directors that are out in the field and doing this on a day-to-day, we, especially in the early stages of their time with the company, I share with them kind of a quote that you shared on a podcast. And I say this, I don't think I've ever really said it on the podcast before, probably even shared it, honestly. And that's, you were talking about, and it kind of references what you said earlier about your time to lead the company. Are you the right person to lead the company? And at one point during an interview, you said, I may not be the right person today, but I feel like I can be that person for the future, the best person in the future to do that. And as you kind of elaborated on that thought, you talked about I'm like an athlete. I'm doing the reps just like LeBron would or whoever that person may be. And I realized that in my position in the organization, I could get pretty comfortable in the size that we are right now and kind of, I understand our processes really well, and I could settle into that with a lot of confidence. I have this huge fear that this thing is going to outrun me. And one day this guy's going to wake up and be like, I don't know why he's here. He hasn't developed, he hasn't read enough, he hasn't studied enough, he hasn't become strong enough to do those things. And it's uncomfortable, right? It's uncomfortable to continue developing, especially when you feel like you have most of the answers, right? And so I've seen that in conversations with Jeff. We'll just cut you out of this completely. We can, but I see that in conversations with Jeff, and we talk about that a lot. It is a worry of mine. The company is not stagnant. It is growing and it's expanding. And will I be the right guy in my position 6 months from now or a year from now? How do you, not so much yourself, but your team, and if we're talking to directors, that's mainly who the focus of this podcast is for our staff. How do you encourage people to not get stagnant in their role and to continue growing? Even right now, you may know all the answers. Right now, you may have all the processes, and you may be that senior person. How do you encourage your people to keep growing for the next level?
Well, it's funny. First, I'll say I'm selling a dream, and I'll come back to that in a second. Because I'll tie a bow on this. Have you guys seen the Conor McGregor documentary on Netflix?
I haven't watched it yet.
He snaps his leg. Yeah. The guy's made $100 million before this, fighting Floyd Mayweather. He had sold a stake in his whiskey company. So he's worth, not $1 billion, but well over $500 million. He's done everything on paper that a guy could want to do. And in this documentary, after he breaks his leg, everyone's saying this is a career-ending injury. You can retire. You're a legend, one of the greatest ever. He wakes up, and it's a really good documentary. You got to watch it. He wakes up, and he's asking the doctor, "When can I fight again?" That's the first question out of surgery. I want a date. When's the date I can fight? The doctor's like, just relax, just chill. You're still on medication. You don't even need to worry about this. And he wants a date. When can I be better to, come back and fight again? And so many times I've had the same worry you do. I was on Aaron Witt's podcast, I believe, when I said this. I think there are periods where the company is way outgrown my abilities. Right now, I think we might be approaching one of those times where there's somebody out there more legit to run the company. My fear is not someday I'm legit enough to run it. I think I could get there, and I think I could run it and build it into the biggest, most successful company that we have the ability to do. My fear is that I don't want to put in the work to become that person.
I see.
And there's a lot of work. Like Conor McGregor wakes up, he can't wait to go put in the work. He wants to be in the gym every day. Like, he wants to build back and get there. My fear is I'm going to wake up and don't know that I want the grind every day for the next 10, 15, 20. I mean, I'm 34, so 20 plus years of grind to someday see this company finally be the thing that I hoped it would be, only to walk out of a celebration dinner with all of our employees and turn around and be like, yeah, but look at all the problems we have. Like, they don't go away, and so to answer your question, how do we get people, even myself, how do we get people excited to continue like self-development, self-education, and growing with the organization? One, a lot of people won't. The people that are in our company today were not the people that got us here, most of them. We've got 1 or 2 guys, 3 guys maybe, that were here the first year or 2.
I see.
Everybody else is turned over, right? And some of it's good, some of it's bad. I'm going to say the same thing about the next phase.
I see.
Some people are going to fall off. They're not signed up for who they have to become and what they have to do to get to the next level. And I've lived through that with some best friends that I helped start the company with, and guys that ran crews that I had a long history with. They didn't want to make the jump to become somebody different. But what I am doing is selling a dream. And what I mean by that is, like, you can build yourself into, I think the CEO of our company someday might even be in our company right now. Could be in a haul truck, could be an 18-year-old kid. But that's up to them, right? Like, the opportunities for our company, the roles, the director titles, the vice president titles, the CEO title, they're there. Somebody's going to fill those roles. Is it the people that are currently here? I don't know, maybe. But I can promise you those roles are going to be here. My role is going to be here. If there's somebody we clearly think tomorrow can do better, I will gladly hand over the reins. Maybe not gladly, but I will hand over the reins because it makes the company better. I think, for me, all I can do is sell the dream and sell the story, and it's up to the people to take advantage of it. And same thing for you. The role's going to be here. Jeff needs this role filled 20 years from now. Do you want to put in the work to do it? That's completely up to you.
Sure.
That's some real talk right there, man. Talking about whether you question your own toughness. Like, Connor wakes up. Am I that guy still? Rarely have I ever admitted this out loud, but hey, why not do it on a podcast? Thanks a lot. Get me into this. But,
it's real.
I've had that talk with myself a lot of times lately, because I was telling that story. I'd go back for the old second shift until 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't know if I could do that anymore. I don't know if it's because I'm about to turn 42 years old, or because I've now had success and made some more money and gotten spoiled, and I'm just not as tough as I used to be. So every once in a while, I will make myself do like some really hard, awful things just to toughen myself up. That's kind of part of, we've talked about being like a business athlete.
Yeah.
Go train for a marathon then. Doing something really, really hard here can get you through doing other hard stuff at work. I believe that. But it's something that I'm really mindful of right now. And dude, you're right.
But somebody's going to do it, right? You're a CEO right now. Somebody somewhere out there is getting better today and is going to continue getting better for 20 years.
Yeah.
And you're going to wake up someday and you've either gotten better and you think you're still the guy, or you're going to find someone that, he's better. And that's what on my worst days, I question, do I want the challenge of getting better? Because it's not only like, and it's weird, the little detail things, like what kids' games do you have to miss? I don't want to go to Montana. I don't want to leave on a weekend and go in the middle of nowhere. Like, my kid's getting ready to start all-star baseball. Like, I don't want to go do that. But somebody's going to, somebody's going to put in the time and take the leadership torch and build the team and morale. Like, so there's a lot of little nuances to who you have to become. I've done it for 7 years, almost 8 years now, and it's been a challenge every day. Do I want to do it for the next 20? I don't know. I want to do it one more day tomorrow and see. And then one more day. And there may be some day where I'm like, you know what? I have either made enough money or have built enough legacy or have, gotten the company into a mature enough position to where it is finally time to say my time's spent better somewhere else. But I may not. I may have the ego and the drive and the Conor McGregor fire to get up every day and I'm going to keep building.
You never know.
I don't know.
We'll find out.
One day at a time.
Awesome. I am fresh out of questions. Actually, this could go on for hours. I enjoy it. Was there anything?
Yeah, we got to stop sometime. I can talk. We'll continue this at dinner, but I mean, I've wanted to. I could do this for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I've got 4 more things, but I'm trying to control myself.
I know.
No, I enjoyed it. I'm happy to do it anytime. Really, really am.
Yeah.
Are you gonna let him off the hook with the fishbowl?
No. Well,
He asked me if I knew what fishbowl was, and I
Yeah.
thought it was maybe a drink or something that you guys were going to
Hey,
serve.
look, this is my only contribution to the show. I'd like for him to not skip over it. So I've put some random thoughts in there. He reads them off, and then we just see what we think.
Okay. Go for it.
I don't endorse any of the things that's going to come out of this thing. Actually, we've had this one on the we've had this one on the podcast before. I forgot to pull them out. I apologize. This was yeah. That was from a couple weeks
guy
ago.
in college should try to meet his girlfriend or her boyfriend in a medical school instead of a bar. Just go shop there for a
I would say my
good, huh?
experience, go meet them in church, not a
church.
bar.
Church,
If
library,
you can meet them in medical school, great.
Yeah.
Maybe they're a genius, but
See,
Church
I knew he
first.
knew. Okay, what do you got?
Keaton, let me ask you something.
Must be a good one.
Yeah, Jeff is wondering, and he's not here to ask this himself. Do you ever hope that for an afterlife where you get to meet up with people you only knew for a single day? If Jeff was here, he'd probably give an example of.
Okay, you want me to go first?
Yeah.
So, when I travel around a lot, I meet a lot of people, and sometimes they're really special people, and I really, really like them. In a different life, this could have been my best friend. I just know I'm never going to see that person again. And it kind of breaks my heart a little bit because I really I'm being serious. So when I think
don't
about,
like people as much as he likes
Yeah,
people, I
this
guess.
We were quick story. We were waiting for a
really? Oh man. Well, most people are like, I can't wait to get to heaven and see my family. And of course I'm the same way, but there's 100 people I could name from various countries and places that
I need to
just
learn from him because when I travel, and my wife hates this about me, I have headphones in, I'm on the phone, I don't talk to people.
Oh, I love people.
I got to take a page out of your book.
Okay.
God is upset with me that I'm not more like Jeff in this sense.
We were flying to Chicago for a meeting one time, and I was several rows back from Jeff. And I see him. I mean, we no more than board the plane. He's already buddied up with this lady beside him. When we get off the plane, he has connected with her. Do you remember this? She was going to Paris or something, and you're sending her recommendations on where she should eat. He's like, I'm sorry, I got to text Susie real quick. And I'm like, who is that? He's
I
like,
do remember
that
her
was the
because
lady.
she had a really unique name. Do you remember what it was? Her name was Faith Joy. And that's a biblical name for you. Holy name.
Yeah, it was.
Well,
I've never had this problem.
pull the last one out of it. The thing is, though, I just really believe this. People really are the best part of the whole world because if it was here by myself, I could have unlimited resources, do whatever, but I like interacting with people and sharing stuff like that, right? I mean,
yeah.
I love it.
okay.
You had
This is
mentioned-
going to be gold. I just have a feeling.
Yeah, this has got to be a solid one. You had mentioned Gold Rush and different things, so I can tell that you love to consume good cable television any chance that you get. Are you just to the point in your life that you just cannot stand for another day to watch animals kill each other on National Geographic?
My kids are totally into Our Planet. There's a new one now called Prehistoric Planet. That's all they watch. They watch animals kill each other on TV all the time.
You just can't stomach it, can you?
That's why it said anymore. It says I can't stand to watch the National Geographic animals kill each other anymore because when I was a kid, watching the cheetah chase down the zebra, that was great. And then you get a little older and you're kind of like, yeah. Now at this point, I got to change the channel, man. Why is that?
You're just rooting for that zebra now.
Have I just gotten that soft?
You're
in
soft. Yeah.
To me, it's wild to see, because you don't see this first person. We don't walk outside and see, a fox eat a squirrel. You don't see that.
Yeah.
But when you see it on TV and how aggressive nature is, and like how it's like, you know, eat or be eaten, or
Totally.
you know, like it is, and especially if you actually sit down and watch it. My son is super into it. Now my 2 little girls are watching it too, and I'm like, yeah, maybe we need to like, you know, dial this back a little bit, because the dinosaur one is so real. If you've watched the Our Planet stuff where it's the real cheetahs, like someone's videoing it, and the dinosaur stuff that's all like CGI, you wouldn't tell the difference.
Yeah.
It's very real.
I've seen some of that. Yeah, well, are you like that? I mean, it's the aggressiveness. You know that it happens. Obviously, we're not dumb, but when you have to just see how violent it is, you're like, You like watching animals kill one another?
No, I just don't. I don't think I tune out because of it. I also don't tune in for it. I guess I'm very.
If you flip through and it's on, you would leave it on. Though.
Okay, so the algorithm on Instagram feeds you things now, right? And occasionally there is that thing where they're at the whatever, the zebra is getting
The
a
alligator
bite.
gets the fawn on
Yeah.
the side.
And I notice I don't stay for it, but also don't like, oh, don't look at it. I mean, it just.
Would you be opposed to like watching hunting on TV then?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I
So
think
it's just
part of it
animal
is,
on
and I
animal.
am a hunter, and I respect the animal, and I want to make sure that I kill it very humanely, one shot, instantly as possible. And some of the stuff on National Geographic, boy, it ain't that.
A lion drowning a zebra in the
Oh,
river. Yeah, that's
just brutal, man. Like this may not. Hey, look, that's a life too.
Yeah.
I hate to see it tortured at the end. Good grief.
yeah.
Yeah, wonder why that exists though. The content. Why do they? At some point, someone filmed it and was like, "Man, that got a lot
it's
of
just
views."
Kids like
real.
mine that watch it and consume it, I guess.
Just keeping the views up. Well,
That's all I got.
yeah. Well, I'm glad.
Interesting way to end the podcast.
Yeah,
What do you think of that?
That's wild. I might have to try that.
you can special order one of these. See, I can.
He talks to people one time and wants to see them in the afterlife, and he doesn't watch animal killings.
Yeah.
You never know what comes out of there.
Well, Keaton, I think I'd have to think back, but I think you've traveled the furthest for our podcast. So number one, I think you have the mileage. Is that correct? I think so.
Gotta be close, huh?
Yeah, I think you have the mileage award. So thank
That
you
was
for
fun.
that. Honestly, we know you're incredibly busy. You've always been very generous with your time through professional meetings and through friendship with the company. So we thank you for coming, and thank you for coming on the podcast. I think we'll probably get like a check mark beside it. We're finally a legitimate. You're our
Oh,
first
that's not
outside.
because of me. No way.
You're our first outside guest as well. We've never had anyone outside the organization on the company either. So
I appreciate it.
yeah, it was an honor to have you. Thank you so much, Jeff. If you wanted to lead us out with a song or nothing.
Hallelujah. No, I mean, you almost feel like a part of the company at this
Yeah.
point because you've been to the different meetings and,
Yeah.
you know, you and I talk some, and so much of our culture and things have been influenced by some of your advice. So thanks, buddy, for all the help over the years.
I'm a huge fan. I love what you guys are doing, and you know, it's rare. I think it's rare for a founder and owner operator to be likable like you. Like it's super rare. So, and you've got an awesome team. It's fun to be a part of. So,
I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thanks. Cheers. guys.
absolutely.
Cheers.
Cheers.